I'm going to talk about the digital games I have purchased off the Nintendo eShop for my Nintendo Switch. So let's go through them. I've got about 30 games, 32 I think it's in total. So yeah, let's talk about them. Let's go through them one by one. And yeah, I haven't got my Nintendo Switch hooked up to a dock at the moment. I've got no way of doing it right now. So I'm going to have to basically go through every single title on my Switch one by one. I'll just explain as I go. The first game on my digital Switch collection is Assassin's Creed The Rebel Collection. The Assassin's Creed Rebel Collection gives you Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag as well as Assassin's Creed Rogue. These games are awesome. I really love Assassin's Creed 4. Assassin's Creed is an amazing series to me. I actually think the series did fall off after these two games personally. Assassin's Creed 4 is one of my favourite Assassin's Creed games in general, and Assassin's Creed Rogue feels like a bit of a DLC to Assassin's Creed 4. They're both great. They're both really fun in my opinion. I love the open world exploration. The pirate ship mechanics are really fun. Some of the best in a pirate ship game ever in my opinion. I would love Assassin's Creed to kind of return to this roots in my opinion. I know they tried with Assassin's Creed Mirage but it kind of fell short. But I would love for Ubisoft to go back to the old style of Assassin's Creed games. That's kind of the reasons why I brought it for my Nintendo Switch. Borderlands 2 Game of the Year Edition. So Borderlands 2 is a open world shooting game. It's a looter shooter. So the idea of a looter shooter is the better loot you've got, the more you win in the game. Borderlands is really interesting as a series in general. Borderlands 2 is the best in the series in my opinion. It's got the best villain in Handsome Jack and also the best story. I'm still playing through it right now actually. I've actually started a new playthrough of it and I'm enjoying my time with it. Undertale. Undertale is an amazing game in my opinion. I love Undertale. One of the greatest indie RPGs ever created in my opinion. I actually think it's a really, really interesting game when you get to the nitty-gritty of it and realize what's actually happening in that game. You have to play through it probably 3 times to really get the full story, but the game is only about 5 hours long in total anyway. So it's an interesting game, Undertale, because it's kind of a game that knows what you're going to do as your next move. It's a bit of meta style gameplay. It's unpredictable. The characters are really funny and great and interesting. For example, Sans, who is the most iconic character from the game, is just he's so silly as a character but also awesome. Flowey is a terrifying villain. Just a great game in general. Undertale, if you haven't played it yet, I really recommend go and play it because the experience is like no other. Going back to Assassin's Creed, I also have Assassin's Creed 3 on my Nintendo Switch, and yeah, Assassin's Creed 3 is a great story. Anyway, it's not my favourite Assassin's Creed game, but it's still a great story, especially the first half of the game, which I feel is better than the second half. When you get to play as Haytham, who is a completely different assassin to Connor, who is the main character of the game. There's a different side to the game. There's kind of 2 stories going on at the same time. And yeah, Assassin's Creed 3 is just a great Assassin's Creed game in a way. It's not the best game in the series, in my opinion. That is Assassin's Creed 2. But Assassin's Creed 3 is still a great game. I remember playing that game when it first came out in like 2013 or something like that. And yeah, it was a really great game. Bioshock 2. So Bioshock 2 is a great game in the fact that it's Bioshock. Bioshock 2 is the sequel to Bioshock, and Bioshock 1 is one of my favourite games of all time. Really love Bioshock 1, just for its creativity and its storytelling and atmosphere. And I feel like Bioshock 2 kind of elevates it a little bit. It's not as good as the first game in my opinion, but it does still elevate Bioshock to the next level. You play as a different character in Bioshock 2 as you play as the Big Daddy. And if you don't know who Big Daddies are, they are kind of seen as like the monsters in the first game. So you get to play as one of them in the second game, which was very left field. Still great, still interesting game. Must play. Carrying on with Bioshock, I also have Bioshock Infinite as well, which is the 3rd game in the series. Bioshock Infinite is different as it's an entirely new story that takes place in the sky. Instead of taking place in Rapture, which is the underwater city that the first and the second game take place in. I really liked Bioshock Infinite for the fact that it was very creative. It's a really interesting dark tale as well. It starts off with this kind of nice atmosphere where everything's going fine, and then obviously everything changes. It's Bioshock at the end of the day, it's a horror game. So yeah, everything's really messed up in Bioshock Infinite, probably more so than the first 2 games, and I really like it for that. Borderlands 1 also I have, and Borderlands 1 is a great interesting game. It's the first game in the series, not as good as Borderlands 2 in my opinion, but it did kind of set the scene for the series. It gave you the gameplay, the general gameplay of the series, and really made you understand what Borderlands was in the first place. And I actually really like Borderlands for that because it's an introduction to the series and it's a relatively easy game to pick up and play. It's kind of one of the first real RPG open world games that really hit the mainstream. I really liked Borderlands for that. The next game is Borderlands pre-sequel. I've never actually played that game personally. I know it's a prequel to Borderlands 2, which sets up the scene with Handsome Jack as a character. I've still yet to play that game, as I've not played all Borderlands games yet. I haven't played Borderlands 3 either. Borderlands pre-sequel I do have interest in playing, as I want to continue the story of Borderlands. Next up is Final Fantasy VII. In my opinion, it's one of the greatest games of all time. Final Fantasy VII is that good. As a story, amazing. One of the greatest villains of all time in Sephiroth. One of the coolest characters ever in Cloud. The companions are great in the game as well. Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, or Aeris if you want to call her that. Final Fantasy VII is one of the greatest games ever made. One of the best JRPGs ever made. In fact, it might even be the best JRPG ever made. I know there's a huge debate in the Final Fantasy fandom about which is the best Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy VII could be the best in the series in my opinion. It's a game that took the series to a new level by completely going left field with the style and atmosphere of the series. It did the same as what Super Mario did with Super Mario 64 and went from pixel art all the way to 3D gameplay on the PS1 and eventually onto Nintendo Switch later down the line. It's an amazing series, Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy VII is the tip-top peak of the series in my opinion. And talking about Final Fantasy VII, I'm moving on to the sequel, which is Final Fantasy VIII. And in my opinion, it's my favourite in the series. It's not the best in the series. It's my favourite for the weirdness and the atmosphere of Final Fantasy VIII. It's a bit different to Final Fantasy VII in the fact that it uses a different kind of fighting system in the junction system, which was added to the series and then never revisited later down the line for some reason. I think a lot of people didn't like the junction system in Final Fantasy VIII, and what I mean by the junction system is it's kind of this gameplay where you have to gather materials to power up your character. So you gather magic, and the more magic you have, the more powerful your character is. So that's kind of the crux of Final Fantasy VIII. I think it did actually end up becoming a bit of a game-breaking mechanic in the game, to be honest. So that's probably why they didn't revisit Junctioning. But yeah, Final Fantasy VIII, you've got the characters of Squall, Renoa, and all these like other characters, Sifa, Adia, who's the villain of this game. It's an interesting game for the fact that it's kind of like Majora's Mask. It's a bit of a black sheep in the series in my opinion, and I actually really like Final Fantasy VIII for that. That's why it's probably my favourite in the series. Next up is the original version of Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. Unfortunately, I played this game on my Nintendo Wii U with the remake version of Shadow Dragon on the DS. That's a better version in my opinion. This is the original old school Nintendo Entertainment System version of the game, which didn't actually get released in Europe at any point when it was originally released. So it was interesting to see it get released onto Nintendo Switch. It was a limited time release, you can't get it anymore on Nintendo eShop, so I'm quite lucky to have it on my Switch and it plays well. But I'd rather play the DS version in my opinion. I think it's just a better version of the game. Fire Emblem purists might disagree with that, but I don't know. It is what it is. I love Fire Emblem as a series. I think Fire Emblem games are great. Next up is Immortals Phoenix Rising. And yeah, I mean, I got it because it's a Breath of the Wild clone. That's exactly what it is. I've seen someone play the first hour of the game physically, like in front of me. So yeah, it looks fine. It looked nice. I don't know how well it runs on Switch. I've not actually played the whole thing yet. Like I said, I've only played the first hour. It might run terribly. It might run great. I don't know yet. I need to really play it. Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. And I've played only the second Ni no Kuni game, and I haven't played the first one. I've heard the first one is 10 times better than the second one, so it's one of the reasons why I picked it up. I saw it for very cheap on Nintendo eShop. And I'm actually a massive fan of Studio Ghibli. I really love the Studio Ghibli movies. I've actually seen every single one of them, bar The Boy and the Heron, which I do plan on seeing soon, eventually. I find Ni no Kuni interesting because it's produced by Studio Ghibli. This art style, everything about it looks really nice. I'm interested in playing through the first one. Like I say, I've heard people say it's far better than the second one, and I quite enjoyed the second one. It wasn't a perfect game in my opinion. It took a bit of time to get really into it, but apparently the first one is even better, so I'm looking forward to playing the first one. Persona 4 Golden is a game that I'm so glad came to Nintendo Switch because I hadn't played it before it came to Nintendo Switch. And yeah, Persona 4 Golden is a top tier story game in the Persona series. A lot of people say it's the best game in the series, and yeah, I can probably agree with that. It's a great game in general. So yeah, Persona 4 Golden had to be in my collection. I didn't get this physically because it's very difficult to get physically. It's a limited run game physically. It was originally supposed to be just released as a digital game on the eShop, so yeah, I mean, that's just what happens. I ended up buying it on the eShop first, so Probably no reason to get it physical at this point. Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. It's got Mario, it's got the Rabbids in it, and the Rabbids are from the Rayman series. Kind of like the original Minions in a way, I guess. I feel like the Rabbids actually kind of deserve a place in Super Smash Bros. I feel like maybe one day we might see that happen, especially with Mario and Rabbids now being a series. But yeah, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, interesting game. Purely because it's kind of like this strategy game. It's not really the Mario game I was expecting to play when I first heard about Mario and Rabbids. It's kind of like Fire Emblem in a way, I guess. Not as advanced. It's more of like baby's first strategy game, I suppose. But it's still a great, fun game. It's Mario at the end of the day. All Mario games are fun. Can't go wrong with Mario. And adding the Rabbids into the mix just makes it even better. The first Bioshock game is on my list. And yeah, it's Bioshock. I've talked about Bioshock enough on this video. Takes place in Underwater City Rapture, and it's just an amazing atmospheric game with twists and turns, comedy, action, horror. Did I mention horror? Horror and horror. It's just so good as a series that Bioshock, I had to get it on my Nintendo Switch when I found out it was released on there. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy. And yeah, I've never played this series. As a Capcom series, I've never really had the chance to play it. I don't think I've ever really had a console where I've really seen the games available. So when I saw that Phoenix Wright 1, 2 and 3 were available on Nintendo Switch, I was happy about that because I can now play a series that I've always wanted to play on my Switch. So eventually I will play them. I've not played them just yet, but they're on my digital collection in my backlog. I sometimes really like that visual novel kind of style gameplay. That will be one of my games to play on my list soon. So there we go. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy. Final Fantasy IX, and I've got that on my collection because it's one of the greatest games of all time in my opinion. An amazing character-driven story, awesome atmospheric world. It's Final Fantasy. I don't need to say much more about it because purely the fact that I've already spoken about Final Fantasy VII and 8 here, but it kind of goes back in the opposite direction from Final Fantasy 8 and 7 and kind of goes more towards that traditional Final Fantasy style that was in 1 to 6. I don't need to say anymore. I am really starting to roast in this costume. This is getting very warm. Before I carry on, I actually want to thank you everyone who has subscribed and commented, liked a video. Just even clicking on a video on this channel has really helped me out, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who has done that, because you know, I wouldn't be doing these videos if it wasn't from the support of the community that I'm building. I appreciate absolutely everyone who comes and just wants to spend time with me watching a video. Maybe if I do a stream every now and then, the people who come and visit me and say hello, you know, I just want to say thank you to absolutely everyone. It's been an incredible journey so far. Been doing this probably around about 2 years now, on and off I suppose, kind of having breaks in between in those 2 years. And it's been an absolute fun experience. I love doing this. So I thought, you know what, I would treat everyone to a ridiculous video of me dressed as Bowser. Yeah, this is the most uncomfortable costume ever. It's interesting to wear. I'm roasting my head off with this annoying Bowser costume. Yay. It's actually quite cool, to be fair. Look at the shell on the back. It's an inflatable shell. It even has like a tail as well. Thank you everyone who's watched. It's been an amazing experience, and I really do appreciate everyone who comes. And if you're watching this right now and you've got this far in the video, thank you again. You are the extra special people who return every now and then for these videos, so thank you very much. Resident Evil 1 to be specific, which is a remake of the original Resident Evil on PS1, and it's an amazing puzzle game, horror puzzle game that gives you the opportunity to kind of free roam this mansion, solve puzzles to escape. The original game takes place in this Mad Monster Mansion, which is also a reference to Banjo-Kazooie, if you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, this Mad Monster Mansion is just filled with zombies and jump scares and monsters that just want to eat you up. And yeah, it's a great story. It's a bit outdated, and I'll be honest with you, like, it's not scary in my opinion, but some people might find it scary. The game does a very good job of building atmosphere in its like sound design and camera angles and visuals. I suppose that kind of works well, but in my opinion it's not a scary game, but I don't get scared easily anyway. So Portal 2 is a really fun puzzle game that uses this portal mechanic of you shoot one doorway over here and then you shoot another doorway over there, and if you walk through that one doorway, you end up coming out the other door. So it's like a portal that, you know how a portal works. Why am I explaining portals in this video? I don't need to explain portals. But yeah, Portal 2 is just a great story game. It's also got a co-op story as well, which is just as fun. It's kind of like the original game, but co-op. And Portal is just, it's so good. I love the humour behind Portal, the lore about this whole Aperture Industries and how it's like this corrupt business about testing on people. It's like a massive Fallout Vault in one game, I suppose. And yeah, I really enjoyed Portal for that. It's just an interesting story-based game, puzzle game. And yeah, Portal, go play it if you haven't. I feel like Portal deserves a place in Super Smash Bros. At some point as well. I would love to see Shell make an appearance in the Smash Bros. Games. I feel like Shell would be a great character. Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. It's one of my favourite childhood games, Roller Coaster Tycoon. And Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 was the first game in the series to go full 3D. And while it's not my favourite in the series, I do kind of enjoy the game for the business management side, and the game for being, it's a sandbox really to just build the theme park of your dreams. And I'm a massive theme park fan. I love going on roller coasters. It's one of my favourite things to do in the summer, go to a theme park and just spend time riding roller coasters and going on rides. It's one of my favourite things. So I kind of think one of the reasons why I got that kind of love for that kind of thing was because I was taken to theme parks as a child with my family. So that's one of the reasons why I probably love Roller Coaster Tycoon so much, was because of those memories of going to theme parks. Super Mario 3D World. Now, I'm annoyed I didn't get this game physically. I bought this game in lockdown when it was released, because it was all in the pandemic when it was released. I definitely picked it up because it was easier to get it digital than it was physical, because we couldn't leave the house at the time. So that's really annoying to me, because I really want a physical copy of this game. Mario 3D World is basically 2D Mario, but in this 3D environment. If you've played Mario 3D Land as well, which is on the 3DS, it's basically just a bigger version of that game where you can play multiplayer as well, up to 4 players. You get to play as Mario, Luigi, Peach and Toad, and they're all great different versions of the game in one, I suppose, because they all play differently. And Super Mario 3D World, in my opinion, is actually one of the best Mario games there is. Very good title. It was my favourite Nintendo Wii U game originally, and the fact it got ported to Nintendo Switch was just a plus for me, because I love that game, in the fact that, you know, the Switch version developed on the Wii U version by making it faster, better running, and just felt nicer to play, in my opinion. So yeah, Super Mario 3D World, great game. It's one of the best first party titles on Nintendo Switch, in my opinion. Stardew Valley is an interesting one, because I'll be honest with you, I've played it, I haven't had that many hours with it. I don't see the hype in this game, in my opinion. It's okay, like, it's nice, and I appreciate the fact it was made by a very small team of people. It might have even been one person, I can't remember, but I appreciate that it was built by a small indie team. But is it a game that I desire to go back to at this point? Probably not. For me, it's the Animal Crossing killer that I just can't get into. I know a lot of people love Stardew Valley for the fact that it is like Animal Crossing. Harvesting games have kind of become like this really popular phenomenon on Nintendo Switch. Cozy gaming is a massive thing, and Stardew Valley is kind of seen as like the big name in that kind of genre of gaming. So, I mean, I might go into it another time, maybe try again one day, but for now, it's there if I want to play it. I haven't really got that desire to go play it at the moment. This is going to be a massive video to edit, I know it, and I'm sat here in this Bowser costume looking like an idiot, but yay, fun! Jackbox Party 3. So Jackbox is a series of games that are available to play, and the Jackbox Party 3 is universally considered to be the best in the series. One game on there known as Quiplash, which everybody plays, everyone loves it. I think it's hilarious. It's kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but you have more options. You can write your own answers instead of having to use the ones that are available on cards. So it's just a great game, Jackbox Party 3, just purely for Quiplash. So if you've never played Quiplash, I definitely recommend at least trying it. You can go on like Twitch streams and stuff like that. I guarantee there's someone playing Quiplash on stream on Twitch. If you haven't tried it, go try it, because it's a really fun game. Just be warned that you may see people write disturbing things on that game, because it is like Cards Against Humanity. So I will warn you that it's definitely not a game for children. The next game, in my opinion, is one of the greatest games ever made, and that is The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, and this is the complete edition with the Blood and Wine DLC on Nintendo Switch. This is another game I actually brought in lockdown because I couldn't get it physically at the time, being locked in a house. Witcher 3 is just, it's incredible. It's such a good game. If you haven't played it before, really recommend trying it, because it's, while it hasn't aged very well in my opinion, I feel like the controls for The Witcher 3 are somewhat temperamental and clunky. The story itself in that game is worth playing purely for the story. It's just an interesting game because of the whole Witcher concept. The series I've never played all the way. I've only played Witcher 3, but I've heard that Witcher 3 is the best in the series, and it's on Nintendo Switch. And while it's not the best version of the game in my opinion, as it looks the worst graphically as it's on Nintendo Switch, the fact that it's on Nintendo Switch is a miracle in itself. It's a miracle port. Tetris 99. So this game is actually free to play, and that is one thing I am trying to avoid on this video, is talking about free to play games. However, for my version of Tetris 99, I have paid for the DLC, so it's not technically free to play anymore. I've got the whole game build. It comes with just original Tetris as well as some other game modes, but you've also got Tetris 99, which is the main feature of the game. Yeah, Tetris 99 is crazy fun. It's one of those games that you just can't put down once you get playing on it. It's really, really fun, and Tetris has always been a winner of a game ever since its inception in like the 1980s. It's just been a massive game. So Tetris, can't go wrong with Tetris. Had to get it for the Switch. When it was free to play as well, it was just a great experience in the fact it was free, but having all of the content in the game is just a bonus, and it only costs like £10 as well, which is great. Next up is Uno. It's the card game available on Nintendo Switch to play. Sometimes I play this with my partner if we're just bored. Once you get that Uno reverse card, you know, you feel like you're winning the game until they use that same card on you, and it's just really fun. Uno is, you don't know who's going to win. It's one of those games as well that doesn't really feel like anyone can just cheat their way to winning, because it's so unpredictable as a game that it's really fun because of that. So Uno on my Nintendo Switch is a great pickup. I got it for very cheap as well. I think I only got it for like £2, which is a great bargain for the amount of fun that I've had with Uno. Saints Row 4, never played it, so I don't really know what to say. All I know is Saints Row is a GTA clone, but with added stupidness, I guess. Is that the way to explain it? I know that you play as like this superhero character in Saints Row 4. That's how ridiculous it got. I suppose it was kind of a way to differentiate the series from being just another GTA clone. So that's all I know about it, really. I know that my cousin really liked Saints Row 2. I don't know if he's played Saints Row 4, but I got it cheap. It was like £2 on sale, so I was like, sure, why not? I've got £2, why not? Let's buy it. Now, Okami HD is a great port of the game. This is the HD version of Okami on Nintendo Switch, and this game also comes with motion controls as well. Okami HD is just really great if you're a Zelda fan. It has that Zelda gameplay. You explore dungeons and fight bosses, and you get new mechanics and new abilities throughout the game, almost like you do in Zelda games. So if you like your traditional Zelda and you want the Zelda fix, Okami HD is actually a great game to play. It was originally released around the same time as Twilight Princess on Nintendo Wii and PS2. It's awesome for anyone who wants to play a game that is an action adventure game. Really great semi-open world game with an interesting story, interesting characters, a great visual style. Can I just say, the watercolor visual style is just beautiful. Looks very nice. I really recommend it. Go play it. Next up is Portal 1. Portal 1 is a very good game in the fact it's just one of the best puzzle games ever made. It's not Portal 2, unfortunately. It doesn't have like a dedicated story mode like in Portal 2. However, Portal 1 is just a great game if you just want something to play for a couple of hours. It's not a very long game either, so you can play it for a while and just have fun with it. Made by Valve and built from the Half-Life 2 engine, it's a very good game in the fact that it's very creative. It makes you think kind of outside the box throughout the whole game. That's one of the reasons why I really love Portal. Resident Evil 5 is the sequel to Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 5, in my opinion, while it's not the best in the series, it's still a great co-op game. The first time I ever played through Resident Evil 5 was with a friend of mine. It's very clunky, and the game is a bit shaky on Nintendo Switch, I'll be honest with you, but I still enjoy it for the fact that the story of Resident Evil, in my opinion, is still one of the best in any series ever, and Resident Evil 5 is still a really fun game. So yeah, I'd recommend getting Resident Evil 5. It takes place in a completely different style of game to Resident Evil 1, 2, 3. It kind of carries on the Resident Evil 4 over-the-shoulder gameplay that was established in the series and became more of an action game rather than a horror game. And then finally, after talking about Resident Evil 5, I'm going to talk about the final game in my digital collection, and that is Resident Evil 4. And in my opinion, Resident Evil 4 is one of the greatest games ever made. It's so good. It's probably the best horror game ever made. Tense, atmospheric. Leon Kennedy is just a really, really great character. Resident Evil 4 is just a very, very intense action thriller horror game, which really took the series of Resident Evil and elevated it next level. So really highly recommended. One of the best games I've ever played, in my opinion. And it plays really well, you know. If you got the Wii version as well, you can play with pointer controls, which makes the game 10 times easier. It's annoying that the Wii motion controls weren't ported to the Switch version of the game. I would love to have seen that. This is still a great version of the game. So yeah, I really recommend it. Resident Evil 4. Right, okay, that was my entire digital collection list. I am roasting in this costume, wearing Bowser. I am roasting. I need to take this costume off, so I'm going to end the video here, I think. Thank you for watching. Again, I really appreciate everybody who has liked, comment, and clicked on one of my videos. Really, really do appreciate it. So please do keep going. I want to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of next year. So that is my goal right now. Yay, let's do it. Let's go for another 1,000. Let's keep going with this very, very good kind of momentum that I've got right now with this channel. Really appreciate everyone who's here. I feel like these videos are kind of being treated a bit more seriously, and I'm treating the channel a bit more seriously than I was. So thank you everyone for being here. If you've got this far in the video, really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, check out my whole physical collection, which I actually made a video, and I'll put that right here. Go check it out. That's this game collection right here. It's available, as you can see. There we go. Thanks for watching. Bye.